Hello. Now, if you've ever manually are changing your data source every single time that you want to refresh your data using Power Query, now this video will save you hours. There's going to be one date cell, okay, and one refresh, and Power Query will do the rest. So what the purpose of this tutorial is we're going to we have 3 sheets in this workbook, and each has a different, uh, of course, the data based upon the range. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to set a parameter basically. So Power Query is going to look to what we pass it based upon this value right here, and this value right here is going to automatically match up with our table names in our Excel spreadsheet. Now this particular sheet, I already named a table, so you could come up here, table name, and then I named it trial balance and whatever the date range is for that. And I did the same for the other sheets in this workbook. So if we go back here, is let's say we want to pull data for 12/31/2022, and that's going to match up. It's going to look for that particular data in this worksheet here, and it's going to be based upon whatever the table name is. And what I did right here is I created a cell which concatenates the phrase trial balance with whatever the value that we have here using our text function in Excel. So text function is basically takes a value right here, okay, and then it formats it in the format that we want it to. In this case, it's going to be month, day, and then year. And so our first step before we go into Power Query and set this up is we want to be able to create a named range. So right here we click on the cell, and the easy way to do that is go into the name box, and we're going to call this sheet name. Okay, press enter. So now we're going to utilize that going into Power Query. So what we're going to do is go to data, get data, and we're going to open up a blank query because we're going to be using the M code, the advanced editor in Power Query. So we're going to do a blank query here. Okay, what we want to do is first come over here to the right, and we're going to rename this query to whatever that you want. I'm just going to select it, trial balance, and press enter. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to open up the advanced editor, okay, into, go up to the top, home tab, advanced editor, and we're gonna create our M code. So our source basically is, we're gonna type in the following, which is Excel.CurrentWorkbook. Okay, and we're going to do this step by step. I'm going to be adding on to this statement, but I want to show you the results of what Excel.CurrentWorkbook is going to bring back. So we're going to click on done. Okay, so what it does is Excel.CurrentWorkbook, it looks in your current workbook and it brings back all these objects, and there are tables. In this particular case, because I have 3 different tables on 3 different sheets that we used, and we also on the sheet number 1 basically is, remember we created a named range, which was only one cell. Excel still treats that as a table. In this case, it's going to be a 1-row table. and it brings back the name. So we remember we named it sheet name. That was our named range, and that's where sheet name comes from. These names here are going to be the actual names of our tables that we set up in Excel. And let's not worry about this error because this is something internally that Power Query performs, and it's not going to affect our M code and running this query here. So that's what Excel.CurrentWorkbook returns. It returns the content field, which we can expand. So if we click on a table here, come down to the bottom right, and what it does, it's pulling in all the data for that particular sheet, or in this case, the Excel table. Now, if we click on this one, remember I told you we created a named range, which was a one cell range, and it returns a one row basically. It's automatically going to call the column 1, and the value in that name range is what we see here on the bottom left. Okay, so that's the first part. So let's go back to the advanced editor and let's add on to this right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to filter down. So what we want to do is we want to filter down to this level here. We want to find a named range or a name called sheet name. So what we could do is by adding in curly braces, which in Power Query, when you have curly braces, it's looking for a list. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the record selector syntax right here, which is 2 square brackets. And we're going to look at name equal sheet name. So what this syntax does, it's going to the current workbook, which is right here, what we see here. It's looking for the name column, which is right here, and we're looking for a value called sheet name. So it's going to find this. Okay, so if we press done here on the bottom, you could see what it returns. Okay, remember, it returns that table name. Now you might wonder why the orientation is flipped. Before we had 2 columns called content and name, and below that was the rows for that particular table that Excel.CurrentWorkbook returns back. Well, in this case, we only returned a 1-row table. And so this is what Power Query does. It flips the orientation. So instead of, like what I said, the columns across the top and rows below, you are now seeing the fields listed vertically, content name right here, and like that. And then Power Query showing a single record rather than a table, because this is a 1-row table. So that's why you see the flipped orientation right here. So our next step here is basically what we want to return is the value of what's in the name field. So if we click on here, or actually when we click on the table, we see the value of the sheet name variable, and that's what we want to return that next. So let's go back to the advanced editor here. Let's go back here. So we go up here, advanced editor. And now we want to actually return the sheet name. Okay. So what we do is we add in a square bracket, content, and then after that, we're going to enter in curly braces 0, and then column 1. And I'll explain this syntax in a second. So it's going to be a square bracket, So let's move this over just a slight bit. So what this is, the ending is going to do is, remember we have two column names, content and name, over here on the left. So content means that we're going to access the content field, and then we're going to expand it basically, and we're only going to return one row. So basically, we're going to return the first row in this table once it gets expanded. Remember, this is only a one row table, so remember that in Power Query, when you have lists, it's zero-based indexed. So in other words, row 1 is actually index 0. Row 2 is actually index 1. So that's how this is returning. And then it's going to look for the column name. This is the actual column name, and it's called column 1. So we're accessing this table right here in the content field. We're going to expand it, look for row 1 in that table, and we're going to return the value of what's in the actual column name, which is this. So we're going to go ahead and click on done. So now we have the actual named range. Okay, so let's go back over here. Okay, and let's go to the advanced editor again, and we're going to go on to the next step here. And the next step is we're going to be adding on, we're going to be filtering basically what's in the table. We're going to look for the table name called this, and we're going to return that as our final result. So in the let statement, if we have multiple statements, we have to use a comma at the end, press enter, and now we're going to return our table that we want. So basically table equals, meaning this is what's going to be called the applied step. And you'll see that over here on the right. So over here, so you can see the first applied step is source, and that's what this is over here. So our next applied step that we want is basically we want to be able to return the data where the table name is equal to this in our current workbook. And we do that by, we still do Excel, that current workbook. Okay, do that, and then we're going to access that. We're going to pretty much do the same syntax here. We're going to pass in a list. We're going to do a row accessor syntax, which is name equal to sheet name. And I'll explain something in a second here. And then after that, we're going to access or expand the content column. Okay, now this is going to be the last step in the let statement right here, so we don't need to put a comma. So let's first, before I click on done, let's see what this is going to do. Okay, we're still going to access the current workbook. Current workbook brings back two columns, which is the content column and the name column. And the content column is our table objects. Okay, and then what we're going to be doing is filtering on the sheet name, okay, in the table, and we're going to pass it the value this time, the value of this variable, which is sheet name, which is this right here. So this is what was returned over here in the previous step. This is the value. So at runtime, it's going to look at the variable sheet name. That's why we don't have double quotes around it. And we're going to, and then it's going to evaluate that. What is the value inside that variable? Well, it's this. So when we filter on the results of the current workbook, it's going to look for this value right here. And once it finds that value, it's going to expand the content column and return our results. So this is going to be our results here. Okay, let's click on done. And give it a second. And so as you can see now, it returned the table that matches our named range in Excel. So now let's load this back into Excel, and we're going to do a refresh on it. So let's do close and load. And what this defaults to, it's going to close and load our table, okay, as you can see here. Now let's go back to our dynamic path. Remember, we set the query to equal 1231.22, and that's what the value is here. So if we go over to this 1231.2022, you could see that this is the table that we wanted to return in the query. So let's just focus on the first number here, negative 190,000. So let's go back up to our query. And so you could see the value was 190,000. So we know we got the correct table. Now let's go back to here. This is the power of using name ranges in Excel to return the query that you want. So let's check the next one. So our next one that we want to return, let's try 12/31/2023, and let's go back over here. Okay. Let's just change this to 2023. It does this. Now let's go back to our query and do a refresh, and you'll see now it'll grab the sheet data from the other sheet that we want. So let's go back over here to our query. And let's do a refresh. You right click, refresh, and see now it brings in a new table, which matches the 12/2023. So 534,000 is the first row. So let's go back up. And that's what matches here in the query. So this is the power of using named ranges in Excel and with Power Query to dynamically select what data that you want returned when you do a refresh or when you first initially load your data into Power Query and back into Excel. Hopefully this tutorial was helpful for you today to understand how you can pass in dynamic values into Power Query and pull the data out that you want based on certain criteria. Again, thank you for stopping by today. You have a great day. Remember to subscribe to my channel, and as always, please like and share this video because it helps get out to more people that are looking to learn this information. Thank you, and I'll catch you on the next video.